And can you see my screen? I'm trying to share my screen today. Okay, so you can see my screen, right? Can anyone tell me what you can see right now? Can you see it says Iyyaka Naabudu? You know, the thing is, either I can see the screen or I can see Zoom, so I can't check the chat. If you can just unmute yourself and tell me. Ah, okay, got it. So you can see. All right, I'm just gonna close everything and go back. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen khatimin nabiyyin Abil Qasim Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin al-mazlumin alladhi adhhaba Allahu ankum rijsa ahli al-bayti wa yutahhirakum tathira. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. يفوض أمري إلى الله بصير بالعباد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I do not know if you can see my screen. As in like if you can see my face or not, but inshallah I hope you can see this screen. So I wanted to now move to the next ayat of Surah Fatiha, surah number 1, ayat number 5, and we're gonna go to the ayat which is one of the most comforting, most beautiful ayats of the Quran. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. So I couldn't find much in the whatever insufficient time I could give to the word Iyyaka. But what I did find is that it doesn't, you can't always really find a root to this word Iyya. And Iyya comes to support the word Ka, which is you. So it gives the meaning of only, basically only you. And the word iya, you will never find it alone by itself. It will always be used with a pronoun. So when the word is combined with a pronoun, then it is conveyed as specific, only, non, but. As in, when we're saying Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, we're saying only.
Mom, Teresa is a very
just a second. Yeah, so it's giving the meaning of only you. And the next word is Naabudu. Now the word Naabudu is what I really want to talk about today. Naabudu comes from the word abada, which is abd, servant. And I've given a few words to show the meanings of the word abd: to serve, worship, adore. Now over here the word abd, with because of its the the signs on it, the zir zabar pesh on it, because of that it can either be seen as a noun or a verb. So over here it's a verb, that's why the meanings are given as verbs. Otherwise abd is a noun, that's a servant, but abada is a word, a verb, verb. And the meaning here is to serve, worship, adore, venerate, accept the impression of a thing. Now, this is the beauty of Arabic language, right? We start to see these deeper meanings, which are so beautiful. Accept the impression of and we have always been talking about emulating his beautiful characteristics. So to truly submit or surrender to anyone or anybody, you will see it in the further examples that I will show you, that the word abd is literally the slave. And to to become like another person, to accept the impression of a thing, is to be a true servant to that entity. Apply, devote, obedience, slave. Now, another word meaning here is to keep to inseparably. So there's no separation when you become a slave. You are almost like inseparable. And we see that people who are the true servants of God, they embody godliness. They become the representatives of God. They become the true shining light of the divine light. And so these meanings are so beautiful in this just one small word. Subdue, assemble together, enslave. Now again, assemble together is to from multiplicity you unite into oneness. And that is why Tawheed or unity is all about the unity of humanity, to assemble together, to be able to overlook our differences and find what unites us and makes us one, and come to a place of oneness. And it is so hard. We all know that it's not just about the when I was showing you the screen, could you guys see me as well? Okay. All right. But I was feeling really confused. So I've shut the sharing at the moment. I'll start it again. Okay, you couldn't see me. All right, because I couldn't see like people in front of me, so I was feeling like I was talking to myself. So sorry about that. So so to assemble together, to come together. So we're seeing that to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we're talking about becoming his abd and servant, there's one aspect where we want to become like him and embody godliness to become like God. And then there's another aspect where we are saying that we want to assemble together. We want to find this unity with not just us not being separated from the source. So we unite with the source, we get assembled together, but also the assembly of humanity, of coming together and uniting in the sense that we find ways to agree to disagree, find ways to be one human race. And Allah is saying in the Quran that I purposely created you different. If I wanted, I could have made you the same, but I purposely made you different so that you may know one another. My point that I wanted to bring here was that it's not just, working on humanity and human rights all throughout the world and saying, oh, we want to find peace and people should unite and religions should unite. At times it becomes a matter of finding that unity within our homes, within the one companion we're living with, or one sibling that you can't get along. I see that throughout the day with my children, that how difficult it is for them to come to terms with each other's differences. And it is Allah's beauty that there'll be two kids, but they'll be so different. They're from the same parents in the same house, and they'll be so different. And at times you would say that, what, one kid was older, one kid was younger, and so that made a difference, timings made a difference, but I see myself, I have an identical twin sister, so she looks like me, we sound exactly the same, you can't tell our voices apart. And we have the same physique. So, in every way we're like same, and we have the same parents, and we were born at the same time, and we were in the same womb, and even our sacs were the same within the womb. That's how close we are in our creation. And yet we are so different in so many ways, in so many things, in the way we perceive divinity, in the way we perceive the world, in the way we interact, in the way we understand the world. So Allah has kept this beauty of creating differences. And the purpose then is not to make people comply to what we think is right, but to accept them with their differences, and to know them. And there was an incident. There was an incident where we were on a forum, and there were people who were supporting of some ideologies, and there were other people who were against it, and some people walked out because they were politically not agreeing to certain ideologies. And what we come to see now is the only way we can really understand the other side, people on the other side, and to find compassion and to find a way to agree to disagree, is to have cultural exchanges, or talking to people on a very personal level can remove our differences. It can remove, perhaps not remove our differences, but give us that empathy to see things from their perspective. And that is one of the practices we do when we meditate on forgiveness. As far as what I've seen, is that we sit and we think, okay, I'm hurt, this person hurt me because of what they did, but let me think about why they did it. What was the motivating factor? What is it that caused them to do what they did? And we say, well, hurt people. What was the hurt that made this person do what they did? So we start to come to a place where Allah is saying, I made you into nations and tribes. I made you different, but so that you may know one another. So if he wanted, he could have made everyone same. If he wanted, he could have mass produced us like in a factory, but he didn't. Now, what that does is that it gives us the polishing ground for us to manifest Allah's qualities. And so if only there is sickness, can a doctor manifest his healing? If only there is a difference, can someone manifest amicability? Only when there is a dispute can someone show being the bigger person. So beauty of character can only be manifested in difficult situations. And I want to mention two things here. One thing is that it's not necessary that we completely attach ourselves to people who are negative and toxic. But what that also means is that to the maximum of our capacity, we stick it out in the best of character. And when on a human level it becomes difficult for us, we part our ways. But we do it with the best of character. We do it with the best of ikhlaq, right? And even in the Quran, when things get out of hand with the Holy Prophet and his wives, in one of the surahs, we see that Allah is actually advising the Prophet to divorce them. And he's saying that we will replace your spouses with better people. But one of the things that my teacher brought to my attention was this, that the Prophet still chose to continue. He did not divorce. And the thing is that was his expanded soul. That was him. That was the Holy Prophet ﷺ. There's no comparison to the expansion of his soul, because he was kind to his enemy. That's who he was, right? But Allah still on a human level is giving him that option, making it okay, making it right to distance ourselves from a place where now your inner world is going to get corrupted, your inner environment is going to get adulterated with negativity, jealousy, um, you know resentment, hatred. And I see some of our people, which I feel like nowadays it's less, but earlier on it was so much more, that there will be people who will go on living with unacceptable situations and not find a way out of it, not find a way to distance themselves, but really corrupt themselves from the inside with a lot of complaint, with a lot of anger, with a lot of negativity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran that no soul can take the responsibility of another soul. So on the day of judgment, or in our encounter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we present ourselves with our open souls and it's filled with this gunk of hatred, we really are not in a position to turn around and say, well, I am angry because of this person, because we can't blame anyone. And in the Quran, Allah is saying that you will be so regretful, and you'll say, I wish I hadn't befriended someone so and so, and I wish I wasn't, that person was not my imam, like I made the wrong person my leader. And the shaitan will say, well, I'm not going to stand by here anymore, because he makes false promises. So where there is a place of amicably resolving things, and on a daily basis doing the work and sorting out our differences, and working on our inner selves, and using this opportunity of having differences to expand ourselves, to learn to forgive and all of that, that's perfect, and that's why it's there. But then we are all tried differently. We're all in certain positions for very different reasons, and everybody's test is going to be different. So my teacher would sometimes say that mystics will do very strange things. Some of the mystics would be tried by being asked never to give charity for that amount of time or whatever. That becomes their test. I wanna share something here. The reason that becomes a test is because egoically we may start to believe that I'm giving charity, and because of my money, I will alleviate somebody's situation. And we feel responsible, and we start to feel like, if I don't do it, what's going to happen, right? And so there's this me there, which is saying, I am helping someone, my money will alleviate somebody's situation, so I need to do this deed. But when a master will tell the disciple, you're not allowed to give charity, you come to a place where you're in a position to help somebody, but you're being trained, your soul is being trained to go back to the source and say, you know what, this money may be coming through me right now, but the source is different. Source is Allah. So if this person is meant to be helped, this person will get help, and Allah will make a way of help reaching this person. And that becomes a training ground for the mystic, for the soul, to let go of the self and the self-importance we give to ourselves, as it was me and I was helping and I was doing something, to something completely different, where you rely on the source. And emotionally, we have to go through the same training. So I want to clarify that this charity example that I'm giving is a very special scenario where somebody's been given specific training instructions. Okay, it's not a general thing. But the same rule applies for us in our daily lives. When a lot of us are empaths, we care a lot about other people. we have a difficult time detaching ourselves from people who are in toxic places. And over there as well, we need to train ourselves to understand that the relief and the peace and the support that I am giving to this person is not mine. It's not coming from me. It is Allah who is the source of Tatmain al-Qulub and Sakina. It's Him. He's the source. He's the peace. He's the salam. I'm not the source. If Allah wishes to make me a vessel, that's good. But then comes a point where sometimes you're so involved in people's lives that it starts to affect us and we can't survive. We start to go into depression, or we start to go into panic attacks or anxiety. We start to feel overburdened, and it takes a toll on our mental, physical, spiritual health. We start to get cranky. We start to feel burdened. And it should never come to a point where we do so much for somebody that we actually voluntarily do something for somebody, but behind their backs, we're feeling so burdened that we actually crib about, you know? So there is a very fine balance between being a human and being this unlimited soul. But being this limited human actually takes us back to the lesson of us being really nothing but a vessel. So when we have to let go of certain relationships or certain friendships or certain company, we feel guilty for not being there for that person at times, even though in our hearts we really want to. Just look at yourself from another person's perspective and see, you're a kind person, you're a nice person, you really want to be there, but you're just not able to do it. It's not like I may not do it, like I do it or may I not do it. It's not about that. It's actually saying I can't do it. I physically can't do it. I mentally can't do it. I emotionally just can't do it because I'm gonna now break apart myself. When we reach that point of helplessness, when we reach that point of powerlessness within ourselves, where if we go ahead and do more good, we're going to start to corrupt our own inner worlds. That moment of helplessness becomes a true moment of servitude, of feeling nothing, of feeling powerless, of feeling really, Allah, I have a limit, but you're unlimited. And the best thing to do to alleviate the anxiety of the heart when we have to detach ourselves from people who are in pain or negative people or toxic people is to pray for them. It's the most beautiful thing we can do, to pray for them, because our Aima have taught us to pray for the enemies also. How do they do that? Because that is something which is so pure and so unlimitedly within our reach. Like Allah has given us that ability that we can pray for anyone. And so the best thing to do in those moments is to pray. And it's a hadith of the Holy Prophet where he says that when you see an injustice, then fight it with your sword. And if not the sword, then with your pen. If not the pen, then with your word. And if nothing, then just feel their pain in your heart and pray for them. And we've already discussed this in detail, that the energetic work we do in our hearts for somebody can be one of the most powerful things that we can do. And one time, this happened with me, that somebody contacted me for some Reiki healing or some work, and I was unable to do it. But I was getting constant phone calls, constant messages, and I felt like I couldn't handle it. It was not something I could do in that moment. And, subconsciously, I was just praying, Allah Mia, just take care of this person. And, I can't do it. And it was a very conscious decision, because I could gauge now that I was losing my best self in this. And sometimes we have to be very careful and aware that sometimes we want to go out of our way and be nice and do things for other people because it makes us feel good about ourselves. We feel like we're something, we did a checklist of a good deed of the day sometimes. Sometimes we feel like, good people help other people, so I want to be a good person. So we start using these situations also sometimes to find self-love and validation, which is also not okay because it cannot reach a point again where we start to adulterate our inner worlds, right? And what happened with this person is that what I just subconsciously made a prayer or whatever. And then the next day I meet my friend. She's also, into all this work. And she meets me and she goes like, oh, that person you were telling about, I reached out to her and I helped her out and I did this. And I was in a shock. I was really in a shock because Allah made my friend a means to help this person in need without me even asking her, without me even telling anyone, can you please help this woman out? I'm feeling anxious for her. I didn't do that. But Allah did. Allah made their connection. Allah connected them. Allah got her work done, brought her ease, which was meant to reach her. And these little examples bring us to Tawheed. So this is really Tawheed. And Tawheed is to believe that there is only Allah who is the source of all good. And we really are nothing. And that is the state of the servant. That is the state of the abd who emulates but also unites, right? And unites in these ways of connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything. And even in the most difficult situations, we let go of negativity, we let go of toxic situations because that's where Tawheed really works. Number one, Tawheed is working because you're handing over this situation to the one who is the Hafiz, the one who protects, the nourisher, the Rabb. So he's the Rabb of everyone and everything in every situation. So to hand it over and not be actively participating in certain situations where you feel like you could have been helpful can be one of the biggest training grounds for our souls. And to the outside eye, it may look counterproductive. In fact, again, I want to bring our solid attention to our intentions here, okay? Because to detach ourselves from negativity, negative situations, negative and toxic people takes a lot of energy, like to extract yourself, because a lot of times we're entrenched in those situations for a lifetime sometimes. And that becomes life's biggest test to extract ourselves and bring ourselves out. And to the outside eye or to that person, it may look like you're abandoning them, you're hurting them, you're not being their support anymore. You made all these promises and now you're not keeping them, all of that. And when we start hearing this dialogue of shame and blame, it is so empowering to be grounded in a solid intention. And if we can be clear about the fact that, look, I have boundaries and my boundary says that I don't move out of my best self and I leave it to Allah. I'm not the source. I really am not the source of giving you support, solace, comfort. And you will notice that sometimes you're stuck in situations or relationships where the person in pain is going in loops. The pain just keeps coming in loops. You give them your pep talk, you do whatever you can do, and after a while they're back to where they were, and it's just a cycle. And so imagine, in reality, is your presence, is your involvement in that situation really changing anything? Is it really even fruitful for you now to do anything, even if you want to stay? A lot of times we are brought to this realization, and that's also Allah's gift, that you really are powerless. you really don't hold the inner power to change or transform or bring about any change anyway. So I may be speaking these words, but will they have the power? Will they have the efficacy? Will they have the effect to bring any change, transformation, even absorbing the information? Do I have that? No, it's not. It's not of me. It's not from me. So in any given situation, we really are powerless. And we have to come back to the intention of our lives, that I am responsible for my soul, and I am responsible for transforming my self into a godly soul before I leave. My job, honestly, is not to change the world. That's not my job. My job is not to save somebody physically, mentally, emotionally. It's not my job. But yes, to the best of my capacity, when I am there for somebody and I'm doing it in a godly way, that is my purpose. To serve humanity to the limit where I am godly. Yes, that is my purpose. I'm here to do that. But that needs to stop when that very same good act can become a corrupting factor for my soul. For example, charity. Stop doing charity if it starts to bring pride. Stop doing charity if there is corruption in the money, right? It's not about that. It's about you. Are you changing through this charity? Are you transforming as a person through this act? So, in fact, we were sitting in a meeting with a teacher, and this became so controversial with some of the elders. But inshallah, I hope you will all understand, and I think you're in that place to understand. The teacher was saying that the pure intention in doing anything is to do it for Allah, right? To come close to Allah, to find Allah, to meet Allah. So that's the pure intention. Qurbatan ilallah. That should be your intention. So somebody said, what if we give sadaqah when our children are not well? And that would be an intention to do a transaction with God. God, I'm going to give sadaqah, you give health to my child. Now, in that transaction, there is no Allah really, is it? Like, am I saying, Allah, I'm giving sadaqah because I want to get close to you? Or am I saying, Allah, I'm giving sadaqah because I want help for my child? And if someone is slightly more conscious, they'll be like, oh, I want help for my child and I want to get close to Allah. But that's not a pure intention, right? And when we attach someone to Allah, then we call it shirk khafi. So the teacher was explaining that this intention isn't a pure intention. And the training he gave, the guidance he gave was that for some time, don't give sadaqah when your child falls sick. Don't. And try to rely completely on Allah for the healing. If we make a belief into our be it an end of it all, then we're creating a demigod next to God, Nauzubillah, because if I feel like without that sadaqah, my children will not get better, then I'm doubting Allah being the source. I am making sadaqah the source of healing for my child. And if I start believing that, and mind you, yes, giving sadaqah will bring healing to your children too. You know why? Because you made sadaqah your idol and you prayed to your idol. And people who worship idols also get their du'as because that is what their belief is. But that's not monotheistic. That is not pure Tawheed. And we are working on Tawheed. We're moving to La ilaha illallah, right? No God but Him. But when I wear a ring and I feel like the energy of this ring is going to protect me, and then that ring, without that ring, I can't sleep. Without that ring, I can't breathe, I can't eat. And I panic and I feel like anxious and my thoughts are occupied that, oh my God, I left my house without that ring and now something bad's going to happen. We have to catch ourselves because now I'm making something else my God other than God. So we understand the idea that, whether it's sadaqah or salah or charity or whatever it is, we have to bring our attention back to our souls. We have to understand the boundary which we need to maintain, where the cleanliness of the inner world is very important. And whatever we do has to be done in the best of ikhlaq, amicably, respectfully, beautifully, makarim al-akhlaq of the Prophet, because that's godliness. And I have come to understand that, I think like if not 99%, but at least 90% of our journey is about polishing our akhlaq. It's about being a good human being to others, right? So we work on that as an up. Now I'm going to start the screen sharing again. And okay, so inshallah you can see this. And so we discussed, submissiveness, humility, assembled together. And I want to now show you one thing. It's a little technical, but what is really important to see here is something about the language of the Quran. Okay, so if we look at this ayat, I'm surprised that I don't have the ayat number here, but this is one of the places where the word abd is used, as in a slave. Now I'm not showing you the verb, I'm showing you the noun of abd. And the purpose of showing this is that there's an understanding of the Quran which we get when we analyze the Quran in the historical and the geographical context. What I mean by that is that a lot of the understanding or extrapolation of the deeper meanings of the Quran that we've been doing, we have been doing it with a lot of esoteric, deeper meanings, and alternative meanings and all of that. And we go into like psychological aspects of the word. But we cannot deny that the Quran has things which are very rigidly there, like the word over there means that word. So in this ayat, it's an ayat of the fifth, like it says, "O believers, retribution, the law of equality in punishment, is prescribed for you in the case of those who are unjustly slain. A free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a woman for a woman." So what we see here is that it's a law. It's something very like direct. It's just there. So the word abd used here is used in a very, very literal way. And it's part of a law given by the Quran. And what we want to understand here is that Quran has used language for the law which was pertaining to the time of the Arabs in the time of the Prophet. And that is why a lot of times we can't just beat around the bush to protect the Quran by twisting or manipulating the meanings of the words to defend the Quran. Where I'm taking you with this is a little off topic, but I found it a very good example to share with you this idea from the Quran. Now, when a lot of our younger generation people, even us, when we ask this question about, the ayat where daraba is used, that you can hit a woman if she's acting disobedient, and separate your beds with her, and then you hit her. So the word daraba is used. Now, a lot of times you will see that people justify that ayat by saying that daraba is lightly touching the woman, or lightly tapping her or patting her. And so they kind of try to euphemize it, like to sugarcoat it and then say, well, it's not that bad. Quran is not like barbaric. How can Quran talk about beating a woman or hitting a woman? So what I want to bring your attention here is that we have to go back to the time of the Prophet and see that when the Quran was revealed, the words that were used according to what language they were using at that time. If the Quran was such a Nauzubillah, a twisted book that only the scholars could extrapolate every meaning, and only like the most high and mighty philosopher scholar would be able to read it, then Quran would not be for the masses or for massive transformation. Then Quran would be a very elitist book. And Allah is saying that I've made it in Arabic so it's easy for you, right? So the language that was used at the time of the Prophet was specifically used because it was simple for those people to understand. And the concepts may be sometimes esoteric in nature because Allah is talking about the ayats which are the muhkamat and which are the mutashabihat, the clear verses and the vague verses. So that is a separate topic. But in certain things, we cannot deny that what the Quran was using, the lexicological or the language that the Quran was using was very, very pertinent to the common language being used at that time. So if, for example, an ayat is revealed to the Holy Prophet that, if a woman is disobedient, then do this, and then you may hit her. And he's sitting with a majlis of people for example, in his gathering, and he's sitting with like 100 people. And he uses the word daraba. And daraba is a common word at that time, which is normally used for hitting a woman. He's not going to say, you know what, I'm using the word daraba, but please don't take it as hitting. Please take it as lightly touching or patting. It doesn't work like that. The message is clear. You can't run away from it. So what do you mean? What do we mean? The reason I'm connecting that over here is that in this ayat where there is a talk about diyat, I think, or the qisas, it's an ayat of the qisas, right? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumul qisas. So it's an ayat about qisas, retribution. Now, in the language of the law over here, the word abd is used because they really mean a slave. There's no running away from it. Slave as in slave. And slave, the one who is owned by money, in money, as a product by another human being. So I really want to bring your attention here to an aspect of the Quran where Quran has to be understood to be a book that was specifically designed for the Arab society 1400 years ago. And it addressed issues which were particularly specific to that era, to that geographical location at times. And the reason for that was that book was specifically revealed to that area and time. The way Quran becomes universal to us and it becomes a book which is preserved forever is that in its essence, Quran is a book of universal message, universal knowledge. So if we go back to the ayat of beating the woman or hitting the woman, what the Prophet did in that time, when I'm just going to stop the screen sharing now. What the Prophet did in that time with the women was that at that time, if a man would find that a woman was being unfaithful, for example, the woman wouldn't even have a right to a lawyer. Like she would just be picked up and thrown out or killed or buried or anything, something like that, right? Or publicly defamed and killed or murdered or whatever. So a woman was treated like a chattel, like a thing, like something you own. She had no rights. For the Prophet to say that if a woman is unfaithful, then, give her time, separate beds, don't talk to her for a while, do consultation. And then even if she doesn't listen, then you have a right to hit her. That was an extremely advanced law in the time of the Prophet. No one had ever even thought about a woman having a say. No one had even thought about counseling a woman. No one had even talked about saying, you know what, this is actually forgivable. Like you can actually go back to doing it. Okay. So in essence, it was not about, in that time, the law the Prophet gave to the women was extremely advanced for their time, but it's not an advanced law for our time. So what the Prophet is teaching us through that law in the Quran is that if the society is functioning at a justice level of -10, and I am giving you a law which is -2, for example, then I'm still 8 steps ahead in the work I'm doing as far as justice is concerned. So as a Muslim, make sure that whatever the standard of justice, equality, and amicability exists in the world, as a Muslim, as a follower of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, as a believer in the Quran, you need to be 8 steps ahead. That is the message that ayat of Daraba is giving us. And that is how all of the law ayat of the Quran have to be looked at. Because if we don't do that, and if we're going to tell our children that, if the Quran is saying you can hit a woman, you can hit a woman, if that is how we're going to bring up our boys in today's time, that's either going to make them barbaric human beings, or they're going to be so upset with the Quran, they're going to leave it because we're not able to explain it the right way to them. If you look at the ayat of, needing 2 women with 1 man to give testimony as a witness, if we look at, other things like property, a woman gets half the property in inheritance. Sorry, not property, inheritance. All of this has to be taken in perspective of the historical and the geographical connotation of the law of the time and what was prevalent at that time. Imagine if the Holy Prophet or the Quran got a law at the time when slavery was common, like absolutely common practice. And if the Quran completely dismissed this ayat that I just showed you, right? A slave for a slave. If you kill a slave, you give a slave. And if you just remove slave from the equation and you say, well, Islam doesn't believe in slavery, so we're not going to put the slave there at all. Number one, at that time when slavery is prevalent, you are not able to give a step-by-step plan to eradicate slavery, but you also take away the rights of the slaves who are already slaves at the time. Number one. Number two, you can't ignore the present situation and jump to something which is like 700-800 years ahead of you. Number two. And not even 700-800 years ahead. We got rid of official slavery in our world just 50, 80 years, 50, 60 years ago. We're still discriminating against the Black people. We're still there. We cannot expect a message to come to the people of Arabia 1400 years ago, and you bring them an advanced law which is like 3,000 years ahead of them. It will just not make any sense to them. So the law that came was very much designed for that time and period and geography, and we need to look at it that way. All right. So that was an off tangent topic, but I needed to bring this into our attention because of the word. Now, if we go back to the word slave and we look at the real, like at that time, imagine when slavery is common, and the idea of a slave is a very very understood thing, like you buy slaves and you sell slaves. And then Allah is using the word Iyyaka Naabudu, like I am your slave, we are your slave, only yours, we are your slave. So if the word Iyyaka wasn't there in the ayat, then Naabudu itself is a complete expression. Naabudu means we are your slaves. But what Iyyaka is doing, it's saying only yours. So over here, I want to share something from the Quran, and let me show you this ayat. no human being whom Allah blesses with the book and wisdom and prophethood has the right to say to the people, be my servants, instead of Allah's. He would rather say, be the devotees of Allah because you teach the book and because you study it yourselves as well. And I really, really wanted to bring our attention to the use of the word ibad over here in connection to Iyyaka Naabudu, only you. Because what we see here in this ayat number 79 of Surah Al Imran is that this is like the complete formula for us to find Tawheed in our knowledge-based understanding or the following of God. Because over here, Allah is saying, no human being whom Allah blesses with book and wisdom and prophethood. So, kitab, hukam, wa nubuwa, whoever has that cannot tell his people that you be my servant. And, and so Allah is actually saying, but, walakin, like instead, be my servant, be my servants instead. He's saying, you cannot make other people your followers or your abds or your slaves, but you be my servants instead. And who would rather say, be the devotees of Allah because you teach the book and because you study it yourselves as well. You're actually studying yourself as well. So this is the idea of the abd. The abd is not the servant of people. The abd is the person who has this direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah is actually taking away this right from a Nabi. He's saying, even a Nabi cannot force you to be in that kind of servitude, to be in that kind of position where you give your complete allegiance to another human being. That would be a complete contradiction of our existence because Allah made us different. Allah gave us aql. He gave us all these senses. He gave us ilm. And now he wants us to carve out our own paths to him. So even a Nabi, Allah is saying, you cannot have slaves. You cannot have people be your slaves. So when we say Iyyaka Naabudu, we are reminding ourselves in the namaz, in the salah we do so many times a day, that we have to find that direct connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to read out something somebody had written about the beauty of the Ahlul Bayt. And what it said was, just a second, that the secret behind the greatness of the Ahlul Bayt and their perfection, which sets them apart from the rest of the people, is their divine knowledge and their absolute devotion to the one and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the embodiment of grace and absolute pure perfection. They were wholeheartedly devoted to Allah, fully grasping the monotheistic concepts which were reflected clearly in their conduct, attitudes, and deeds. And that is exactly what Ahlul Bayt salam alayhi salam came to teach us, to have that direct connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were the finger pointing to the moon, but our job is to look at the moon, not get stuck on the finger, because the whole embodiment of their work, of the Ahlul Bayt, of the A'imma, is for us to find the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each one of us have to be always very careful that whenever we are, making and setting our intentions, we find that clarity that the ultimate goal is always and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of these beautiful, lofty souls, luminous personalities that have come into our lives, they don't become the end of our appreciation, our worship, our connection, that we start to feel like in any way they are the source. And it's very important that I say this because we have a habit of saying Ya Ali Madad. We say Ya Ali Madad so much. I guess a part of me. I can't even help it, because that's how I was conditioned, that's how I was brought up. But it's really important that even as a reflex, if I'm saying that, it has to go back to the source. It has to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because there is only one existence. There is only one source of power. Everyone else and everything else is just a vessel. All of the imams, all the imams, all the prophets, they were just vessels. And just to end today's talk, like I said, anything else that can deter me from this direct connection then becomes my idol. And then, there is work to do to break off that idol. It has to be. For a lot of us, it is conditioned. For a lot of us, it was, drilled into us. So we need to come back again and again, moment to moment, and understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only source. I would like to end now with a dua, and then I'll open the floor if there are any questions. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Oh Allah, you are the mighty, you are the powerful, you are the loving. You're the one who cares about us when no one does. You're the one who's with us when we are alone. Oh Allah, you are the ocean of infinite love. You are the Rabb, you're the nourisher, oh Allah. What an honor it is for me to be your Abd, Ya Allah. What an honor. And a higher honor would be, oh Allah, that I could have the ma'rifah of knowing who you are. And while only very special friends can have the glimpse of your beauty, O Allah, I can dream to be one of those. I know I'm not worthy. I know I don't know how to. I don't know I'm not there, O Allah, but I can dream. And when a servant takes one step, O Allah, you promise that you take 1,000 steps towards them. So Allah, run to me. For I falter, for I fall, for I struggle, for I'm weak, Ya Allah. O Allah, in all of my moments of weakness, be my guardian. And show your face to me in everything and everywhere. O Allah, I turn to you. And I ask you to take me out of my states of ghafla and ignorance and oblivion and bring me to you, even when I don't have that awareness. And O Allah, how do I show my gratitude? Because you are the one who enables me to show gratitude, and you are the one who brings my attention back to you. What an honor, Ya Allah. Make me worthy of this honor. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad.